So you have your personality test results, and on one or more of the dimensions, you've scored close to the 50% mark. And you're wondering what that means and what to do about it. So let's find out. Hi, I'm Samantha Mackay, lead trainer at Truity, and for many years, personality tests would place me near the middle of the extroversion or introversion scale, which can happen to ENTPs. We can be just as happy in the world of imagination as we can being social. But it took me a while to feel satisfied that this was the correct type for me. And even if you answer all the questions honestly, the fact is some of your personality traits will suit more than one type. So it's not uncommon to be drawn to more than one best fit profile, all of which describe you well. So what can you do to narrow down the options? Well, first let's clarify what's happening in the background of a personality assessment. We all have the 8 elements of personality within us. We are both introverts and extroverts, sensors and intuitives, thinkers and feelers, and judges and perceivers. A test is measuring our preference along each of those 4 spectrums or scales. And in the background, there's a numerical value for how strong the dominant trait is compared to its opposite, ranging from 51%, which is very weak, to 100%, which is very strong. So you could be an ESTJ who scores highly on all 4 dimensions or very weakly on them. So superficially, both people are ESTJs and they have the same type psychologically, but there are going to be massive variations in how each person expresses themselves. So it's important to remember that best fit doesn't mean perfect fit. And most people agree with some aspects of their personality profile and barely recognize themselves in others, which is a long way of saying that an ESTJ is not an ESTJ who is not an ESTJ. Like I did, most people type somewhere in the middle of each scale. And if the graph looked like a bell curve, most of us are clustered around the 50 to 65% mark. So scoring 48% introverted and 52% extroverted is pretty normal. You're actually less likely to score on the extreme end, say 95% or 5%. Why? Because humans are diverse, adaptable creatures. None of us live in silos. We adapt our behavior to the circumstances. We learn and grow. This is especially true for parents who have to adapt to the demands of parenthood, which can stretch our personalities in more way than one. It is unusual to get a 50-50 split for every letter unless you marked neutral for every single question. So if you really are coming up with nothing, try retaking the test at a time when you are more relaxed or in an environment that feels more like you. And ask yourself if you're being really honest with yourself, as there should be a lean to one side or the other, no matter how small. But if you are scoring weakly on some traits, like 55%, you might be wondering what your personality type actually is. So in addition to taking the test again, you could also take a different 16 types assessment created by a different author, or try taking a completely different test like the Big 5, DISC, or temperaments. What you are looking for is patterns of behaviors, not absolutes. And having multiple test results can help you connect those dots. Don't expect a single test to give you a definitive answer on who you are. Remember, they're just indicators. Also try reading profiles of different types and marking what is like you and what isn't in each. To decide which ones to look at, replace the weak trait with an X and read the 2 corresponding profiles. So for example, an ENTX would read the profiles for an ENTP and an ENTJ to give you some clues. Now the other thing you can try doing is going deeper and looking at cognitive functions and how they stack. And this is what finally helped me be certain I was an ENTP. Now there is a lot to this, so you might not want to jump into this rabbit hole, but here is a very quick overview of what you might find. Carl Jung identified 8 cognitive functions, or preferred ways of thinking, and of those 8 functions, you have a preference for one, otherwise known as your dominant function, and your preference for the other 7 will be lower and to varying degrees. So for example, an ENTJ prefers to use their thinking function above all others, then their intuition, then with sensing and feeling coming last. An ENTP prefers to use their intuitive function above all others, then their thinking, with feeling and sensing coming last. Another way of saying this is that ENTJs focus on making decisions with their thinking function first before investing time to gather information, while ENTPs will spend a lot of time intuitively learning about something before looking to their thinking function to make a decision. So while there are commonalities between the 2 types, understanding these preferences can help to tease apart their differences. But at the end of the day, we are all unique humans. You are the ultimate decider of what type you are, no one else, and certainly not a test. Take what fits, throw the rest away. The idea behind these assessments is not to nail down every facet of who you are, but to start a lifelong quest for knowledge about yourself. And the 4-letter code just starts that conversation. So to read more about different personality types or to take a different test, head to Turity.com.